You're listening to The Power Project. I'm your host, Brandy Voth. I also like to think that I'm your guide along this journey of purpose, which is where you will hopefully end up at the end of this podcast. I'm a mom, a wife, a daughter, a friend, an entrepreneur, an advocate in the fight against human trafficking. I wear a lot of hats, y'all, but don't we all? And most importantly, I am passionate about inspiring women to go out and lead purpose-filled lives while owning your God-given power. I have this crazy belief that we are all better when we lift each other up, which is exactly why I created this platform to spotlight other women that are leading in ministry, business, and nonprofits in the hopes that you at home will be inspired by their stories to get up and take action in order to walk in purpose and own your God-given power. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Welcome back to the Power Project. My guest today, Ashton Cantou, is not only a transformational life coach and a speaker and my friend via social media and on this podcast. She's someone that I genuinely love and am grateful to know in real life, you guys, like real life. And I'm thrilled to have her on the podcast today because we both have really busy schedules and just don't have the opportunity to sit down and chat like girlfriends would nearly often enough. So without further ado, let's welcome Ashton to the podcast. Hey, Ashton, how are you?
Hey, y'all. I am doing amazing. I was telling Brandy, I'm coming off a little bit of a cold, but I feel great. I sound worse than I am. And just really super grateful right now to be here with you and to be able to serve with you.
I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast with me. It's something that we have talked about for quite some time. And I just want to give like a little background here. You and I met at a women's empowerment event where we were both panelists on the panel. And literally, I know I've told you this over dinner before. I was walking into the building and I looked over and I saw these killer pants, like pants that I needed in my life, in my closet. And they were being worn by this drop dead, gorgeous, exotic looking woman. And I turned around and I looked and I was like, I bet this lady is on the panel with me tonight. Sure enough, we walk in and you're backstage, and I instantly knew that we were not only going to be panelists at that event, but I knew that God had some plan for us to work together in the future and be friends. And so I'm glad you and your fancy pants are in my life.
They were pretty fancy, guys. They look like a fan. Yeah, they were pretty fancy.
Oh, they were so good. They were so good. And so the more that, you and I sat backstage and got to know each other, and I loved it because I am a person that I have always loved extracting stories from people. I have always loved learning people's stories and learning about people. And you struck me as the exact same way. I sat down and you immediately started asking questions. And I'm typically really comfortable asking the questions. So when other people start asking them, I'm like, whoa, wait, okay. Am I
right? Right.
Yeah. So I knew you, and you said that night, you were like, look, you and I, we're going to work together again in the future. And I'm so excited that we are. But I would love for the listeners to just get to learn a little more about who Ashton is and what a transformational life coach is and how you even end up at that place in life.
Sure. Well, let's dive in then. So, at this point, I think I'm going to reverse engineer this. I typically will start with my past, and I think this time I'm going to start with just kind of where I'm at in my current journey. So, I have completely like revamped my just understanding of my purpose in this world, and just kind of have this blanket understanding that I'm a servant leader. And the way that has manifested in the way I serve is that I serve people one-on-one with life coaching. And that can look like anything from working with people with childhood traumas to working with people that are struggling with depression or anxiety, people that are having family issues that they want to work through, or even just, their own personal struggles with their identity, or maybe their self-esteem, or maybe they're just feeling lost or confused, or maybe they're just in a transition or wanting to find a new direction or their passion and purpose in life. So kind of that aligns with some of the work that you do. And I've really been able to hone in and be very successful in helping people come out of wherever they are when I meet them to the other side, feeling fulfilled and confident and capable of taking whatever their next step is in life. So that's been a really beautiful gift that I've been able to embark on for the past 3 years in my business. But it's also kind of it's grown in the sense that I've been attracting a lot of coaches, and I've been attracting a lot of other leaders, and I'm also certified in leadership coaching. So I've been working with quite a few coaches recently on building their own businesses and creating their own coaching programs and things like that so that they can support individuals as well. So it's been kind of fun because I've watched it morph over the past few years. So that's the coaching side of things, and I absolutely love being able to support people in that way. But I'm also just really passionate about philanthropy. So, like you, I am consistently serving in the sense of speaking or volunteering, working with battered women, women who are in drug rehabilitation. I recently just went through some classes to start working in prison ministry and working with a juvenile ministry.
Stop it.
I'm super pumped.
I love prison ministry. Like, not that I do it. I love people that are doing prison ministry
Yeah.
so
And
much.
this will kind of tie back to the past, right? So people say, "Well, how did you get into life coaching?" And I always kind of joke, and I'm like, "Well, you don't choose it. Like this life chose me." Is what I always tell people. Like I got initiated into this, like the gang of life almost. At a very young age, I was struggling hard. I was struggling with self-esteem issues as a teen, which you can see why I'm driven towards working with juvies. I got in trouble quite a bit. Kind of lived a double life though. Like I was fine in school. Nobody really knew that I was struggling, but I really was. I was self-medicating with drugs and alcohol to cope and dealing with, some family issues, divorce and things like that. And I did not have the coping skills, and I just kind of fell off. I went wheels off, and it really put me on a downward spiral path. And I had a lot of negative consequences, and definitely have what would some would call like a checkered past from some of those life experiences, and just was truly in retrospect making decisions that showed that I did not value my life, that showed that I didn't really have a high self-esteem or high self-worth. And on the outside you wouldn't have known it. I was really good at wearing the I've got this mask, and being Miss Independent, and I was smart and driven. So like on the outside, you would have thought everything was fine. But I do know what it's like to struggle. I do know what it's like to have anxiety, to have dealt with depression, to have really, dealt with tough family issues, and have to overcome, being a failure in people's eyes and having that become your identity. So having worked through a lot of those things in my own life, and coming out on the other side, and finding this place of self-love and confidence, and just ultimately tapping into my own purpose, like I just know that's why I went through it all, right? So the initiation piece brought me back to the ultimate purpose of serving others, and healing, and serving others and growing, and serving others and stepping into who they're actually meant to be. And that, just like I said, has manifested in many forms: life coaching, leadership coaching, business startup, ministry, all of it. And I'm just kind of playing. I don't niche myself in. Where I feel called, where spirit leads me, I go. And I just really have fun being able to be dynamic, and serve different communities, and things like that. So
Tell me, what does it look like to have to go through being certified for prison ministry?
well, I'm not certified. I went through classes to learn their particular um, course content, right?
Okay.
So I'm certified in life coaching. I'm certified in leadership coaching. I just went through a church. Actually, I went through their program that they actually use as a curriculum. Does that
Okay.
make
All right. Do you follow, I can never say her last name correctly, but Bianca Olthoff, I believe is her last name.
I do not.
Okay. I may be introducing you to your newest role model in
Okay.
life.
Okay.
She is a preacher. She is she calls herself a Mexican.
Okay. That's so cool.
And she does, like, not only does she do prison ministry, but she has somehow convinced this prison in California to let her set up, like, she has a full on church inside of the prison.
That's awesome.
Yes, and it's amazing. Like, it is so inspiring. You're gonna love her. You're like, once we'll talk about this in a minute, but once you're back on social media, you can go check her out. But she literally has, it's called the Norco Prison Campus, and they have 480 people attending church, and then, like, she posted 6 days ago that 89 men, like, received Jesus in their life at their service. So
Phenomenal.
yeah, so I have a huge heart for this. I did not know that you were even, like, getting involved with this. I knew that you and
Yeah.
I had spoken about some philanthropy, some projects, but I love it. I love it. And I think that you are 100% the person for the job. So well done.
Thank you. I'm excited. It's been something that's been on my heart since I was, 19 when I started really growing and making some strides and realizing that the things that I had been through could help and serve people. And I was like, man, I've kind of been through a lot at such a young age. Like, these poor teenagers are still in it. Um, but the church was just an easy entry point for me, right? They're already in, and I just figured, you know what? I'm just going to hop on that train rather than trying to create something else for myself, because you and I are really good at that.
Uh-huh.
Bring
Yeah.
on more things. So I thought, you know what? I want to be involved, but I don't want it to be my thing.
So you had this idea at 19 years old. What age range were you in your oh, I hate to even call it rebellion or your struggles.
Oh,
What age were you
solid
when you
decade.
were
I had a solid, like, hardcore decade of, like, school of hard knocks, downward spirals. And it was like just this up, down, 2 steps forward, 10 steps back, 2 steps forward, like queen of self sabotage. I would consistently hit my upper limits because I would achieve, and it was almost like my talent could take me where my character couldn't keep me, type thing. And that happened from the age of 15 to 25. Um, and it looked very different. It started with drugs and alcohol in the teen years, and then it turned into, like, abusive, toxic relationships, um, and then it was just more of my own limiting beliefs, and, like, it started to water down as far as, like, the massive consequences and the really tough lessons, but then it was just like me being my own worst enemy, beating myself up, not going after the dream to be a coach, not, like, holding myself back from the things that were put in my heart because I didn't deem myself worthy. So it was a good 10 years until I finally was like, no, like, something's got to change. I'm the common denominator here, and I deserve a better life than this. But obviously, I need to relearn some things because these patterns are really ineffective. And they're causing me a lot of pain.
and did you talked about um God and your faith. Were you raised in the church? Did you always feel a relationship with with God from an early age, or is this something that you developed later as you really stepped into this journey of purpose and learning your value and your worth? Was it something you dove into later, or was it something that was always there as an underlying
Yeah,
factor?
so I was raised in church. I always had a very strong faith in God, which I think is very important to note, because there are many times in my life that I should have been dead. To be quite honest with you, the situations I was putting myself in were very dangerous situations. I was hospitalized a couple times, like, just kind of like, whoa, I must have had some angels. So all along, I kind of felt this presence that was really sparing me, like almost this anointing. Like, even though I could have been hurt, I wasn't. So I recognized that even at 19 and 20, and I really started to catch on that there was something greater kind of at play, because somehow things were always working out, and things would be spun and worked in my favor. right? Even when they shouldn't have been. So I really grasped onto the fact that God was at work. But what I struggled with was my faith in myself. When I really saw God come in, though, like hardcore, was when I was 25 and I walked away from an abusive relationship. And I literally had to start over. I had literally nothing. I mean, I was in my car. I was waiting tables with a master's degree, working 7 days a week for several months, and just too much pride to go home. I was in a state all by myself here in Texas, and I struggled, but I watched God move. I found a church, and I went from being Catholic in Indiana to being rebaptized at a non-denominational Christian church here in Texas, and then just like the next step, the path just started getting laid out in front of me, and I started mentoring these battered women. I got led to take these care baskets to this non-for-profit, and she said, "I've been praying for you." She's like, "You were born to be a blessing." And I, at this point in time, zero friends. I was hanging out with Chris and Marty, who were in their 70s and 80s. They were basically my adopted grandparents. They were the only people I knew that were just kind of helping me get on my feet. I mean, literally, they had bought me dishes for my apartment. And it just, I was just a mess. I was just down and out. And God just provided. He totally came through and put me in a place of service. When you're really, really struggling, the best thing you can do is help somebody else. And I got a job in special ed as an aide at that point. And here I am serving these 12 kids, ages kindergarten through fifth grade, with everything from anxiety to paraplegic and Asperger's. Like, how could I feel sorry for myself? It didn't matter how poor I was. It didn't matter how much I was struggling with myself. Like, I just couldn't. Right. And so I got that job, and I started working with these battered women at the shelter. And it just like hit me that, hey, this is what I was thinking when I was 19. Like, I really like this. I really like pouring into people. I really like mentoring people. So that's when I started searching for coaching certifications. That was a little over 5 years ago now.
That is so cool. I love to watch someone's purpose journey unfold. And I think it's one of the most interesting things to look back and see, because we can't obviously we can't see while we're in the fire, like why we're going through that fire or why we're walking through that fire. But I think it's beautiful to look back and see all of the pieces placed along the journey that add up to where you are today. And obviously, where you are today isn't where you'll be in a year, 5 years, 10 years. But it gets me really excited about the future and what is to come, and how much, once you become faithful and obedient and walk in servanthood,
Yes.
how greatly you can be used to literally further the kingdom.
I'll tell you the key right at that point, right? Like, here's where the shift happened. And I know for a fact it was because I was in such surrender. I was at such a low point that there was literally no control, right? I couldn't even pretend that I knew what the heck was going on or what I was doing. It was a literal point of surrender. And when we get out of the way, that's where God can come in. And he did. I mean, like, I got an apartment with no proof of income. I got a job, and then they ended up letting me swipe in to make extra money to start mentoring teachers in the evening, so that I could just help pay my bills. And then Chris and Marty, my 80-year-old and 70-year-old angels, came in, and just they friended me, and they supported me, and then the church, and then this woman with the like, it all just aligned. And the only reason that was even possible is because I finally was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I need help. So ultimately, the key, and what I know in retrospect, is the power move there was surrender, right? The power move was me getting out of the way and literally kind of just being humbled by life and admitting I need help. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't figure this out. I'm lost. I'm down and out. Like, please, somebody throw me a bone. And when I did that, like, God moved in every sense of the way. So I have found that is the move that I need to be more intentional with, on purpose. Like, be more, like, do it on purpose. Don't wait till life beats you down, and don't wait till life puts you on your knees where you have to ask for help to move into surrender and get out of the way. Because when we move into surrender on a regular basis, and we release control and expectation and attachment to how things come, and we just let God do what God does best. Like, that's where the magic happens. The only time that we have blocks to all the things that are already available to us is when we are in the way. So it was a big lesson that I didn't even understand until I really started studying the transformational principles. And I was like, oh, that's what happened there. Like, I was in surrender.
Hey guys, are you on the email list? Are you getting my weekly newsletters where I wrap up what we've chatted about on the podcast, as well as what I have going on in life? Well, guess what? You should be. Because in case you didn't know, I have a book coming out soon, and you're going to want to be one of the first people to find out about that. So in order to stay on the list with the rest of the cool kids, you can head over to the website, the-powerproject.com, subscribe to the newsletter, and you'll never have to miss out on any of the inside secrets ever again. Also, are you looking to create your very own newsletter? Are you wanting to amp up your email marketing tactics? Maybe you have no idea where to start. Maybe you're not sure how to even create a really nice looking email, or how to get it on a system where it isn't completely time consuming each and every single week to update your audience. You're going to want to check out Flowdesk. That is the new platform that I'm using to host my email marketing. And you guys, it is a game changer. I can't even tell you how beautifully crafted the email templates are over there, or how completely easy it is to use that program. I'm loving it. I've been sending out emails like crazy to my network with Flowdesk. And trust me when I say anyone can use it. It is a step-by-step guide. You're going to absolutely love it. Plus, with my discount code, you're going to save 50% off when you do sign up for Flowdesk. So you're going to get a month for free, and then you can get 50% off after that by using discount code POWERPROJECT. So that's flowdesk.com with the code POWERPROJECT. I'm curious if, like you said, you always felt the presence of God, and you knew that there was someone there, something taking care of you when you weren't necessarily making the decisions that you needed to be making. There was someone saving you from yourself. But I'm curious about, obviously, your life experience, and your life experience from a very young age has served this mission and played a key role in where you are today and how you are showing up and serving others. But as a kid, what did you think of being when you grew up? What did you dream of? What type of life did you imagine from an early age?
I thought I was either going to be a dancer or a vet.
A dancer or a vet. So you love animals, all animals?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm actually that into animals. I have a dog. I've had a dog a lot. No, I don't know. I think I probably didn't know. And my dad was very much of the shaping generation, like, let's condition you and help you to really find your path. So, he pointed me to education early, and he was an educator, so I followed his steps and didn't really do a lot of thinking for myself as far as like, what would I actually love? It was more of, who basically, like, what would be approved.
Yeah. And
be approved of.
I think that's something that people often at our age, I don't know if it's a generational thing or if it's just something that's a human thing, a human nature thing, because I had everyone in my family told me I would grow up to be a lawyer, and I don't know if I ever necessarily wanted to on my own, or if once that idea was put into my head, I was like, oh, okay, I'm opinionated, and I can point out, holes in a system. And okay, I have the qualities that would make a great lawyer. But yeah, when you look back, it's
Right.
like you think, well, is that something that I actually thought of on my own, or was that shaped for me and placed in my mind by someone else? So that makes sense.
My parents were really great at encouraging me to also dream and to that that the sky was the limit and that I could do like you. Like they believed in me up until I proved to them in their eyes that maybe like they couldn't, and it kind of went a little sideways for a while. They kind of lost some faith in me for a while, but um, there was also the duality of although the sky's the limit and you can do what you want, this is the right way in my eyes type thing. So I don't know if I ever really felt like I truly had the freedom to be a free thinker, even though it was presented that way.
Mhm.
And it was all out of love, right? It's all out of love. When our parents are trying to shape us, they're really trying to protect us, um, and point us down the path that they feel would be in our highest good. But
Right.
only we know
Well,
what's in
and
our
on that
highest good.
note, I I've had a lot of conversations about this lately, and I know it's a buzzword, but do you know your Enneagram number? O- Okay, so
No,
this is
I don't.
why I
And
I have a
just
theory
because I
on
struggle
this.
with
Like,
numbers.
so I'm a 3, and a 3 is an achiever. And it can be a really great thing to be an achiever, but it can also be your downfall. So in the sense that kind of like
Right.
when we did something as children and it was expected of us and we were told we could do anything we put our mind to, and then we did it and we achieved it and we received the recognition and praise for it. It was great. But in my personal opinion, the first time that I quote unquote let my parents down or disappointed my parents, it really set me on basically a downward spiral for several years, because all of a
Right.
sudden, similar to what you're saying, they were so proud of me and they believed in me and they told me I could do anything, until that one day when all of a sudden I wasn't that achiever at that moment, if that makes sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
um I resonate with
Totally.
what you're saying on that. So, and I understand. I personally understand. I know there's someone at home listening that definitely identifies.
Many people I work with feel this. Many people that I work with feel this. A lot of times, um, even when people come to me wanting to start a business or grow their business, what's stopping them is this kind of stuff, and they don't even realize it. But they're maybe not branching out in the direction they want to branch out because that's still their inner child still wants their parents' validation and approval, right? So like they hold back because they still are seeking that. And until we kind of get over that and know that we have to become our own, it can really limit us as adults too. But 100% on the other side of that with the achieving and not measuring up. One thing that was a big shift for me, and I hope that anybody who this resonates with will take this piece of advice, is that we can't mistake our parents' love for validation and approval. Or, in other words, we can't mistake their validation and approval for lack of love, or their lack of validation and approval for lack of love. And sometimes we mix those things up because they don't approve of some of the choices we make, or because they don't validate the direction we take. It's mistaken for they don't love me, right? They don't accept me. And it's just not the case. It's really that parents have an idea of who they want us to be, and they have a very hard time when you break that mold because they're holding on to a version of you that they believe that you would be. And it has nothing to do with not loving you. It's just a matter of their belief systems that they had in mind not coming true. And once we can kind of let go of the need to be validated by our parents and the need to be approved of by our parents, we really have this new profound sense of freedom to go after our dreams in a way that makes sense to our soul.
That is that is a really good piece of wisdom and a direction that I wasn't even wasn't even anticipating this episode taking, but I want to sit just for a minute here because I think one of the greatest, most freeing realizations that I came to was the day, and this is literally a recent discovery. But when I finally one day realized that as much as I love my parents, as much as my parents love me, my value and my worth lies in my creator's eyes. And
Mm-hmm.
that there was just a sense of freedom that I experienced when I realized it's okay if my parents are critical of something, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
okay if my parents and I don't agree on things because
Mm-hmm.
God's got me. He made me this way for a reason. I'm serving the purpose he's called me to, and we can love each other without, and it almost freed up even maybe a box that I had put them in.
Yes.
It almost took a burden off of their shoulders.
It goes both ways.
Yeah, so I think that's a really nice added bonus to the episode that I wasn't even expecting for you to.
It's a big breakthrough. And most people that I'm working with around this are in their 30s. It is people that are around our age, that are starting to, in your 20s, you're still kind of moving through who you want to become. But by 30, like you're starting to like really kind of cut some of the fat and decide like, no, this is what I'm about. Like, this is who I want to be. These are some of my core values. And sometimes those things just don't align with the ways that you were raised. And it can be a tough pill for your parents to swallow. But at the end of the day, it's about love and acceptance, not validation and approval.
Correct. And let me just go an added step and say that when you're knocking on 40, you have realized who you are, you've stepped into who you are, and you have also began to care less what others think about that.
Right. Yeah.
And I wanted to mention one thing because when we talk about you revamping, like really how you're serving people, how you're showing up for people, what your purpose in this world is,
Mm-hmm.
I know that you have a lot of really exciting, positive energy and things going on. And you came out to my cabin when I was out of town and spent a weekend out here, and you had kind of a little like revelation breakthrough with a new project. Can you tell us just a bit about that?
Yes. So, I mean, it's not happening in the timeline that I had anticipated, but it's in God's time, right? I actually wrote a book at your cabin. I wrote a kid's book, and it's a social emotional book for young girls, and it's around self love and self acceptance. It's kind of the storyline is the little girl's comparing herself to the other girls, and she kind of wakes up to who she is in God's eyes, right? And she begins to see herself through a new lens by the end of the book. And just recently, I've pivoted with this book because it was originally a picture book for younger girls. And the truth of the matter is, the research shows that it's between the ages of 8 and 12 or 8 and 14, I believe, that girls' self esteem like plummets. Like their confidence drops of almost, I think, 40% within the tween years. So I kind of wanted to gear it a little more towards those middle grades, third through fifth. And then I thought, well, they don't really read picture books by then. They're reading more of those graphic novels and things like that. So we're revamping. We got halfway done, and I had to say, you know what? I just had this like epiphany. And so now we're completely pivoting and moving the timeline, but it will still be, this passion project for me of helping young girls understand that comparison truly is the thief of joy, that they get to own their beauty, and how they were created 100% without looking at their neighbor as someone greater or less than of them. And just really coming to this place of self-love and self-acceptance early on in life, because otherwise it's tough. I still work through these things for myself, and I work with adults on these things, men and women. And if we can start to infiltrate these principles into young girls, and they can have a more solid foundation of understanding of who they are, and really learning to love and accept themselves early, then maybe it'll help them combat some of that comparison. So I've also paired that with a self-love journal that has some positive self-talk prompts. And I've written a lesson plan for educators or counselors that can go with the book. And then I've just built a little bit of a website and put some resources together for parents to help, build this bridge with their kids and support their daughters, because these are tough conversations. Even as I talked to a mom the other day who has never struggled with this kind of like comparison, self-esteem, and she has a teenage daughter that's struggling. She said, I just can't relate. So I'm hoping that this could be a place for our community or just people in general to go to and be able to find some resources, and the book being one of them. It's not as much about the book as it is about the principles of self-love and self-acceptance, and really helping these young ladies grasp it earlier before they hop on social media and are just faced with a whole nother level of it.
Well, I'm really excited about this. I personally, I have boys, right? I'm a boy mom.
Right. Lucky you.
But I see this, and I see the girls that are my boys' ages that are struggling so much, and I want them to know how worthy they are. And so I think that you are spot on with your target age there. I think that you also eliminated an extra step that you don't have to bring an illustrator in, so that
we're 15 pages in with the illustrator already when I made this decision. So we're going to, yeah. So I wish I could say that, but here's the thing. And this is a great lesson for listeners in general, business and life. Okay. One of the greatest takeaways I've ever had in failure is the power of the pivot. And that's what this is. It wasn't a failure, but if I would have pushed the book out the way it is, I would have missed my target audience, because the girls that are depicted in the illustrations look older than an 8-year-old. An 8-year-old is going to be probably your top age to read a picture book. So the pivot is to turn it into more of like a comic graphic novel, which 3rd, 4th, 5th graders love. So we're still going to have illustrations, but it's going to be more of that, kind of teen feel.
I love that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's just a pivot, but that's a powerful move in life, because a lot of times we think that we've failed, but really all we have to do is take one shift, degree to the left or to the right, and we're on a brand new path that takes us to a whole nother destination. So we never want to give up on the end goal and just scratch the idea. We just need to sometimes make a quick pivot into a new direction.
I think it's brilliant. Is your website, is it live yet?
Nothing's live.
Okay.
This is probably a mid 2020 at this point to really get it fully executed the way I want. And this is just my little passion project. So I have not put any pressure, timelines, and I know that the illustrator is also deep into her ministry and the work that she's doing in the world. So we're just kind of giving each other grace on our timelines, and just we're allowing it to unfold.
Well, so, and like you said, I mean, I think that someone said one time that we make plans and God laughs. I think he feels the exact same way about the timelines that we give ourselves, because while it's great to put a timestamp on a goal, I know, and you know, that God has a perfect timeline for everything that we are working on, and we have to trust him in the process.
Totally. And it's releasing that control. I mean, even 3 years ago when I launched one of my first programs, I remember feeling so stressed, just overwhelmed, just really just burnt out, because I had this 90-day target, right? I had a 30-day target and a 60-day target and a 90-day target and a weekly target and a daily targets. And those are great. Don't get me wrong. I'm a goal-oriented achievement execution kind of gal, and I know you are too. But we have to be flexible. We have to learn to pivot. We have to be flexible with our timelines. And the thing is, we're going to get it done anyway. No matter what, it's going to get done. But it needs to happen in a way that feels in alignment. And when you lose your joy, you're out of alignment. When you are stressed and feeling, chaos around a project or a mission that you've set forth, you're out of alignment. So it's not worth the expense of your health, your mental health, or your joy. So that's why being flexible and being able to pivot is so important.
I think it's so good. I mean, I 100% will give you a high five anytime you want to talk about pivoting and failures. And there are no true failures as long as you learn to, like you say, pivot and follow the direction that you're being led. And
Uh-huh.
I'm so excited for your book and your website and all of this to come out. I'm so excited for my listeners to get to know you and for you and I to collaborate on some things in the future. But the one thing that I would like to just leave the audience with today, because you really have had a great story of redemption and triumph through obstacles and perseverance. For that 19-year-old girl that is sitting at home right now that has been through struggles and that is feeling like she's not walking in the purpose she's called for and feeling like someone has labeled her a failure at this point, what would you say to her for taking that step? What would you want her to know, maybe about her future self?
I think one thing that I've learned is really important. It's learning to trust my inner voice, aka your intuition, aka the Holy Spirit. It's really learning to quiet the noise, because as a 19-year-old, as a 16-year-old, as a 25, there's so much noise. And some of it comes from us, looking on social media and comparing. Some of it comes from our parents, from peers telling us. It comes from boyfriends labeling us, things like that. Quiet the noise, sweetheart. Like, literally get some space for yourself and learn to listen to that still small voice inside you, because it will never lead you astray. It really truly knows everything. You have an inner wise woman, and the older you get, the wiser you get. And the more you learn to listen, the better. We all have intuition, but it's truly only as loud as our willingness to listen. So if you've been busying yourself and you're all caught up in your social life, it's very hard to get clear. It's very hard to know your next step. It's very hard to rise above the labels and the the parameters that society or your family or your friends have put on you. So in order to break away from those chains and to get clear about who you really are and what you're really here to do, you've got to just go get quiet, get still. And, when we pray, that's the time we talk to God and we tell him the things that we would love and that we need for him to come through in a life. But we rarely take the time to just stop and listen to what he has to say and to where he's guiding us. So for that 19-year-old girl or that 40-year-old woman or that 16-year-old girl, it doesn't matter. You have an inner wise woman. It is the Holy Spirit. It is your intuition, and it will never lead you astray.
So right now, while we are recording this, Ashton is in the midst of a social media cleanse because she is practicing what she preaches, stepping back and taking a break and quieting the noise. But by the time that we air this, you will be back online where we can all connect with you.
It's Ashton Cantou, ASHTONCANTOU, and that's just an Instagram page. Yep. And then even in my bio, there's a little Linktree link there, and it has information to all of my programs that I offer, the coaching services that I have, previous podcasts, maybe some articles perhaps that I've written for blog posts and things like that. So there's all kinds of goodies in there for you, and maybe even some freebies. Self-love freebie, I believe, is in there, and I think also maybe a deepening your sense of deserving. So if anybody's really wanting to cultivate a deeper sense of self-worth and start to do some self-love practices, there's some little freebies in there for you as well.
Look at how much goodies you just gave away to the listeners. I love a guest that comes with goodies ready to give away. I thank you so much for taking time out to share your truth with us, your story with us, and to encourage the listeners. And I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon.
We will. We need to do that, sister.
All right. Well, thanks so much for jumping on with us, and you just keep following God's will and walking in purpose.
Thank you, Brandy. I appreciate you carving out the space for me to serve, and I do pray that this was of value to not just one, but many people, and hopefully we'll have more collaborations soon.
Oh man, you guys, my favorite part about this show is the amazing women that I get to meet every single week. I love hearing their stories, and I love bringing their stories to you guys. I certainly hope that you're inspired to go out and lead your own purpose-filled lives after listening to these guests week in and week out. If you are inspired by something you've heard in the show, can I ask a favor? Can you go please write a review? Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Give us a rating. We'll take 5 stars if you're feeling generous. And then tell all your friends about us so that we can continue to bring you these guests.